Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Simon Hughes. I'm the National Facilities Operations Manager at the RFU, specifically looking after the Rugby 365 programme. We've got some other colleagues on the call who will introduce themselves shortly. But thank you for joining this. We're going to talk about the Community Rugby Injury Surveillance Project, which we all commonly know as CRISP, and something that we often ask our AGP sites to be part of every year. So we thought we'd give you a little bit more information about that. So I will hand over to colleagues within this who will run through the project and give a little bit more detail. And then we'll ask some questions at the end, which we think are the questions that you will probably ask as a club. So without further ado, I will hand over to Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Whale. I'm the Facility Operations Manager within the AGP team. I look after all the sites in the south of England. And generally my role is to look at the operational management and the safety management of the AGPs. I'll pass over to Rachel to introduce herself and give you a bit of an overview on the CRISP programme.
Thanks, Matt. My name's Rachel Full-Brown. I'm the Player Welfare Manager for the community game at the RFU, and I lead on rolling out a number of different player welfare and player safety projects across the community game, of which CRISP is one of them. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of CRISP and what it is, and then I'll pass on to Simon Roberts from the University of Bath, who'll go through things in a little bit more detail for you. So CRISP stands for the Community Rugby and Injury Surveillance and Prevention Project. And as Simon alluded to, we roll it out across all of the AGP clubs. The project is run in conjunction with the University of Bath, who collect the data and then analyse the data for us independently, which makes it a really robust project and giving it credibility outside of just the RFU as well. And across CRISP now we have three main strands. So we have the adult community game, the female adult community game, and then age grade boys and girls, which covers clubs, schools and colleges. And a key part of the success of CRISP is making sure that we have a substantial number of clubs each year and teams involved each season to give us the data so we can form a real good insight across those different playing populations. And why do we do CRISP? What's the purpose of CRISP? So having data across these different playing populations allows us to build insights across a number of different areas, and that includes across different age groups, looking at differences between the male and the female game. Very specific to this conversation we're having now is looking at any differences in terms of playing surfaces, and also now with the introduction of the tackle height law variation, we're using CRISP to be able to compare data before and after the tackle height changes. So it gives us real good insight in terms of injury trends, types of injuries, injury sites, where it might occur. So it gives us really robust information to look at how we might want to make changes, whether that be law changes or other things, equipment, etc. So it really forms the foundation of a lot of the work we do across player welfare. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Simon Roberts, who's going to give you a bit more detail in terms of what we do specifically around the AGP side of things.
Hi everyone, I've been introduced, but I'll say it again. My name's Simon Roberts. I'm a research fellow at the University of Bath, and I've been working on the CRISP project now since its inception in 2009, but we've included since 2018 all the AGP clubs, mainly to gain an insight into do injuries differ on AGPs and on grass. So Rachel's given a really excellent overview of what the project's about. So I'll just run you through now some of the findings we've had amalgamated over the years that we've been running this subsection of injury surveillance in these teams. So since 2018, this is data from 2018 to 24. We've had a number of matches on AGPs and grass. These are all the AGP clubs playing home and away. That's how there's a split. So in the bottom left figure, we can see here natural grass compared to artificial grass pitch injuries. So on the horizontal, we have the incidence, which is the number of injuries per 1,000 player hours. And then on the vertical, how severe those injuries are, so the average days missed per injury. So we can see in this figure here, artificial turf looks slightly higher severity and slightly higher injury incidence, but statistically the differences aren't there between that and natural grass. And on the right-hand side here, I've just got that split in terms of the incidence and the severity in terms of how that's split over the different seasons. And you can see here they're fairly similar over each season. And then when we come to the average, there's really not much difference. And so moving on, just delving a little bit deeper into that data, we've got it here split into different body sites. So that the top 6 most common sites, and most of the injuries do occur around these sites. So we have the head, the shoulder, the thigh, the knee, the ankle, lower leg. And really, particularly in the head, shoulder, thigh, not a great deal of difference in those injuries on AGPs and grass. Slightly higher incidences on AGPs for the knee, lower leg, and then particularly the ankle is probably where we see the biggest difference, and that would be the only one where we consider that to be significantly different. Similar with the severity, there's no significant difference in the severity of injury on the different sites for these particular injury sites. And then how do the injuries occur? Well, as we know in rugby union, and this is the same across all our surveillance projects, the tackle incurs the most injuries, at least half of all injuries. But here we can see that there's really no difference between how the injuries are sustained on the different surfaces either. In terms of the contact, the tackle is predominant, and then in terms of the non-contact, just running-based injuries are fairly close between the two surfaces as well. And then finally, when do injuries occur over the course of the season? Traditionally, if we see higher injury rates at the beginning of the season for various reasons, but interestingly, with the AGP clubs, it seems to be a little bit more constant for the first few months of the season. Possibly because there's more consistency in the playing surface. We know that on grass pitches they tend to be harder at the beginning of the season, then soften. So perhaps something to look further at there. But an interesting finding that the injuries tend to be more constant on AGPs over the course of the season.
Yeah, so thanks both. That's some really good information there for us to go through. What we've done is come up with some questions, if you don't mind, that we think the clubs will want to know. So I'll go first, and happy for you to share the answers between you. But the first one is, as a club, do we have to be involved in this, or is it optional? And if so, how do we get involved?
So as one of the RFU AGP sites, we feel there's a great opportunity to be part of this. You know, you've got a unique playing space and facilities, and actually having insight into an understanding around the data, etc. You know, it can add some real value to understanding any specific trends, but also how you can obviously make best use of the facilities as well. So we do ask that the RFU, the 365 project sites are involved. And how you can get involved is by registering your interest or kind of responding to any of the communication that we send out in terms of obviously signing up.
Do clubs have to provide CRISP reports for all teams within the club?
I can pick that one up if that's all right. So primarily, we would like men's first team information and women's first team. If there's a women's team at the club who play at appropriate level, we look at levels for the men's levels 3 to 9, women's levels 2 to 6. So they're our primary focus. We do know that some AGP clubs have previously reported for second teams as well, which is fantastic. The more the merrier, but primarily those first teams. As Rachel put on the first slide, we're really keen to engage with more age grade teams as well this year. That's a fairly new thing for CRISP. So if there are age grade teams within the club that can support the project, that would be fantastic as well.
Simon, following on from that, as a club, do they have to report every injury?
So the definition we use for the CRISP project is we ask for 8-day time loss injuries. So these are basically injuries that keep the player out of the game for more than 1 week. So if they got injured on, let's say, a Saturday, are they available for the next Saturday? If they are, then it's not reportable. If they're not, then it is reportable. And we use that definition to keep the number of injuries reporting burden down for teams. There's obviously fewer of those more severe injuries. Statistically, that would be an injury every 1 to 2 games for a club. So we're not normally, on average, talking about multiple injuries in a game.
Another question: how much does CRISP cost a club to be part of?
Oh, the ever important question, Matt. So actually, it doesn't cost the club anything to be part of it. In fact, for the 365 clubs, we will pay them a little bit in the fact that we will cover the cost of their proactive license for the year, which is one of the tools that we can use for reporting. There are a few other tools that can be used for submitting the data, and I can let Simon come on to that later. But if clubs choose to use Proactive, we'll pay for their annual license for that, which will obviously have benefit for specifically for the CRISP project, but they can obviously use the other elements of Proactive across their club as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So you mentioned they're proactive. I mean, we're aware that clubs have to report injuries anyway. Does this mean we've got to do it twice, or is there an easier way around that?
I can probably answer that one. So the CRISP is quite a specific project. So we only need those injuries reported on CRISP injuries once. I should have emphasised they're also just match injuries for those teams as well. So just 8-day time loss match injuries. And they don't have to be reported elsewhere if they're reported in the CRISP part of the Proactive app.
Final question for me is who completes the CRISP reports for the clubs?
In terms of who reports it, it's up to the club, really. It's usually a person attached to each team. So we just call that person a team designate, and that's normally the physio for a team, but it could be the team manager or the team coach, whoever's in the best position to be able to report that information and understand what information needs to go in. And we provide full details of the types of injuries and how to report them when teams participate.
Just a follow-up question. How long does it take to report an injury, and how do they do it?
Well, there's a few ways of reporting the injury. We have, as we've mentioned before, the Proactive system, and within that there's a specific CRISP module designed for that. The reason we have the separate module is because CRISP is a separate research project. The data is self-contained in one section of Proactive, which I can then access as the researcher. That's why it's very important. It's a separate part. But also, if teams also have their own data collection methods, we know a lot of teams have their own ways of recording injuries with the medical team. We're really happy to speak to clubs and just tap into the type of information they collect and maybe add on some data fields that we need. So we're happy to talk to clubs and work with what they have. So in terms of once the season started, it's a very simple process. We just need the number of games that team's played, really, really brief details, which takes just a few minutes. The score, the opponents, the date, obviously the pitch surface is important to us. And then obviously when an injury occurs, we just want the information on that injury. And that's adding information such as selecting the player, the position they were playing, brief details on the diagnosis, how it happened, and some of the treatment the player received. And if the team has that information at hand, it's very simple. It's some check boxes throughout the injury report form.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks. So that's it in terms of the questions that we've got. Obviously, we're encouraging all teams and all clubs to get involved with this and be part of it. So if you have any other questions, you can always email us at rugby365@rfu.com, or you can contact either Lloyd or Matt or anyone else within the team, and we'll be able to answer that. We will be out and about speaking to you about this every season, wanting you to get involved. So we look forward to seeing you engaging with the project. Thank you.